Toleration, be the love. Before pride and exaltation, be the love. Be the love.
You are listening to Be the Love, transcending through the shadows into a higher state of consciousness. We are souls on the journey, opening up the conversation to heal, awaken, and connect ourselves and the planet to a higher vibration of love frequency. It starts with you. Everything you need is within you. This is your time. I am Stacy Musial.
And I am Sam Fernandez, and we are your co-hosts at Be the Love podcast. Thank you for tuning in and ascending with us. Hop on board the Ascension Bus.
This is Jules DeVito from Highly Sensitive Humans.
This is Katie Jo Holton.
We are Michael and Jamie Thornhill at Casa Galactica.
This is Tara Jolly.
I'm Anna Anderson, and you are listening to Be the Love podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Be the Love, Transcending Through the Shadows. I am Stacy Musial.
And I am Sam Fernandez.
And we are your co-hosts and souls on the journey. And thank you so much for tuning in again this week. And if you've enjoyed listening to our show, we'd be so grateful for a 5-star written review on iTunes. Reviews really help our show become more visible and spread the word to others. And if it feels safe for you, I'd like to begin by inviting you to take a moment just to get centered with us. I'd like to begin by inviting you to take a beautiful cleansing breath in through your nose and out through your mouth, releasing anything that is keeping you from being present. And take another deep breath in through your nose, breathing in calm, peaceful, loving energy, and breathing out anything you are ready to release in this moment. And take one more breath in through your nose, breathing in light and love for yourself, and breathe out the light and love and send it back to all of humanity, remembering that you always, always have your breath to come back to. So today we have Carol Banayos. Carol is an archaeologist of the mind and body and soul. She's a certified life coach and executive coach, psychic, clairvoyant, entrepreneur, and founder of the Wake the Fuck Up movement and Business Snapshot. Carol is the #1 best-selling author of Wake the Fuck Up, A Journey from Death to Awakening, and co-author of Success is Just a Decision Away, How to Create Anything You Want in Life, and The Genius in You, Extracting the Acres of Diamonds, which is coming out soon. Carol can uncover genius in the inner shit that holds people hostage. She holds space to allow people to be seen and feel safe, heard, understood, validated, and loved. Her purpose in life is to raise human consciousness and help people reach their fullest potential and greatest capabilities while being their true, authentic selves. So thank you so much for being here today with us, Carol.
Thank you so much, Stacy and Sam, for having me.
Absolutely. This is exciting. I'm really excited to dive in to your work and learn a little bit more about what you've been working on. So tell us a little bit about kind of your spiritual journey and what led you to this point.
Well, my spiritual journey has been very tumultuous, but it's been a blessing in disguise. I think, before I really went into the spiritual journey, I kind of had 3 near-death experiences, and it never really woke me up because I already was dead inside. It was only maybe towards when the ending of a toxic relationship is when I actually finally woke the fuck up and realized I was conditioned and conformed to societal norms, and that what I choose to pursue in life, whether that be, going to university for 7 years, getting 2 degrees and going to, getting a corporate job for 7 years in the government as HR consultant. I thought that was all my dreams that would make me happy, but I became miserable. So once I really woke the fuck up, then I start to kind of determine what it is that I wanted to do in life. And when I made that decision, you think that everything else would unfold nicely, but it was just kind of a series of trauma and events and hardships all the way up until now. So, when I decided to leave my job and pursue my passions, I went to real estate, and you have to have like some thick skin, because a lot of people are not, when you kind of operate in a sense, others treat you how you treat yourself or how you expect to be treated. It doesn't always happen that way. And then, I helped my brother put a business underneath my name, and I found myself in jail and a legal battle for 6 years. And it was just really tumultuous. But what I learned throughout all this stuff and actually losing everything is at that moment when I lost everything, I realized I had everything. I wasn't my status, my recognition, my job, or material things. I was way more than that. And you can lose anything in an instant, but what you will not lose, or what people can't take away from you, is your experience, your genius, your fortitude, and your willingness to persevere and do better the next time. And I think a really big key thing for me, what I realized throughout this whole journey of mine, is that life happens to me or for me and not to me. Because when you think that life happens to you, you're kind of in victim mode, like, why me? Oh my God, but when you know that life happens for you, no matter how tumultuous or painful and trauma, that it's kind of, I don't know, really crystallizing you into the being that you are meant to be by being able to dive deep. It's like, what is that trigger? Why am I feeling this way? It's to uncover the beauty of who you are, to rediscover and remember who you really are, that divine being who's meant to do amazing things in this world. So yeah, that's kind of how it led me to this point right now. And I think another thing too is, like, if you were to ask me like 3 years ago, Carol, do you want to operate at unconditional love? I'll be like, what the fuck is that? I don't even what, that's some kind of crazy thing. But it's almost like when you go throughout the spiritual development journey, you realize that unconditional love is all there is, and love is the only true power. And there's so many dualities that exist in love, in life. Like, say, people look at, the sliding scale of love and hate, but is it really love and hate, or is it the absence of love? So really is that oneness of love. And we have to look at, the duality is not really duality. It's just kind of the absence of love and the absence of light. And yeah.
Wow, there's so much to unpack with what you just said. There's just like, it's so many beautiful nuggets right there. And so I just love, how, that process, it sounds like you came out of that victimhood place where I think a lot of people tend to get stuck, where they're like, oh, life is happening to me. Why me? Why is this happening? Rather than looking at the outside perspective, or the perspective of that every interaction, every experience that we have is for our own spiritual development, and how we can use that to ultimately grow and evolve. And it sounds like there was a lot of space that you had to work with around just that ego place, and that coming into that I am presence, letting go of those layers that I think we are all conditioned with. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about that and what that process was like for you.
Well, it was very interesting because I kind of use this analogy that I learned from my spiritual teacher, where, say if we were to kind of look at ourselves all as kind of pine trees, and then during Christmas time, we have all these decorations. We have, the lights, the popcorns, the ornaments, and all these other things. And once those layers keep on, and decorations keep on packing on, we kind of identify as those kind of ornaments or those lights, when in fact that, once you kind of awaken and deal with all your trauma, you realize you're not identifying, you're not your role, you're not your status, you're not any of that. You're a spiritual being having this human experience. And I think the thing is like, when you realize that you are not your material things, it's a really I would say that's the biggest awakening, because I think in this world right now, we're really really kind of basing people's worth based on what they have, their car, their money, all the material possessions. But at the end of the day, when you're looking at externally focused confident stuff, what happens when you lose that? And so when a lot of times when celebrities and stuff like that lose that stuff, they don't know who they are anymore. So they may commit suicide, they may go through addiction and all this other stuff. So the turning point for me is when I lost everything. So when I went into jail, and then I got out and I still had my real estate position, but everything hit the fan. You know what I mean? My clients went MIA. The mortgage broker I was working with was stealing my clients, and I eventually had to leave that job. But when like I said, when I had that turning point, I realized I had everything. I wasn't that thing. And then I just kind of went towards the development of my spiritual journey to kind of dive more deep into why was it that I kind of associated with those kind of external things. And I was more focused on developing my internal strength, because at the end of the day, I realized that's all that matters. It can be so much tumultuous outside all this external chaos, and I have no control over those external factors. The only thing I have control over is how I feel internally and how I think and perceives a certain thing. So it was really the shift of knowing that I'm the one in control, but knowing that I don't need to control any external factors. That it's impossible, because you can influence, but you never want to impose your beliefs on someone if that's not something that they believe or they're not ready for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I think that, you make a good point about just that trauma and that level of, we've all been conditioned, I think, to look outside of ourselves externally, right? For the answers, whether or not it's through our medical profession or, our parents or, and very seldomly are we looking within. And so you talk a little bit about the archaeologist of the mind, body, and soul. And I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about what that is and how you dive deep into the realms to do some of that deeper work.
Yeah. So essentially, like how I like to describe it is that I see people, but I see through them. And I think since I was able to deal with a lot of my trauma, my past traumas and all these things in my system, then I became an empty vessel for source to kind of work through me. And when I was able to do that and sit in the presence of someone else, I can really fully be there and then kind of see and interpret things that they may not even know themselves. So, when I look at someone and I'm saying, if I'm doing a personal one-on-one reading, then the spirit already shows me like what they've been through, when the trauma happened, the specific age, and also they show me what that person should be focusing on. So I'm able to uncover their inner shit, and also their genius of the point of focus. And usually, typically, when sometimes people are really baffled, and I'm baffled myself, because it's usually 100% accurate. So I'm like, whoa, what the hell's going on? And the thing is, what I learned the most, which I did in the beginning when I realized I had these gifts, was never to doubt what was coming to me, and always just kind of no matter how crazy it is, what was coming to me is to be able to kind of verbalize it, because I'm like things come through me, and I need to deliver that message, because that's the only reason why I'm receiving it. So I can't harbor it for myself, and I meant to be able to share it with other people.
That's beautiful. And so it sounds like as you're using those skills, you're really helping others to see within themselves some of maybe the traumas on deeper healing. So are there certain things that you offer people once you do identify those things?
Yes, I do offer certain exercises and stuff that they need to do to facilitate that growth, and I think it's really unfortunate that what I've experienced, because a lot of people, especially since we're living in this fast-paced, a pill for every ill society, people want quick fixes, and they're not willing to do the work to sustain what it is that has been uncovered. So it's almost like, okay, so Carol told me this and she uncovered all this stuff, so let me go to another healer, another medium to confirm what it is she already told me, when in fact the work and process that I already told them, they would have gone so much further had they kind of stuck the course. But some people, they really want those quick fixes, and then unfortunately it doesn't happen that way. So there's always a way to kind of evolve and develop that personal self. So, but like I said, some people don't want to do the work.
Yeah, and I think that's very common too. It's, we do live in that, not only are we looking externally, we're looking, where's the pill? Where's this quick fix, rather than the deeper personal inner journey that we all must go through to really overcome some of those deeper traumas and belief systems and all the emotions that are buried deep within, and learn to tap into that inner wisdom. And so in your experience, like why do most people suffer? Like what's the common theme, or what would you say about that?
I believe the reason why a lot of people suffer is because they're stuck in the past. They keep on making a reference to their past, like that's who they are and that's who they always will be. And also, I believe another reason why people suffer is because they want their external environment to match how they feel inside, or this person needs to be this way, that person needs to be that way, this should have turned out that way, I should have got that job. So they have all these expectations around a certain thing. But then with expectations comes suffering, because you kind of put a power in someone else's hands, or a power in a situation. And if it doesn't turn out the way that you want, then you suffer. And then also, I think another reason why people suffer is because when they go through a traumatic and painful experience, we know that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. So it's always a choice of where you want to stay. Like either look at that, like that experience or the traumatic event, like I said, happening for you or happening to you. And I think a lot of people just suffer because they want things to be the way they are, but they're not willing to do the work. In order to change, you have to change yourself and put into action in the direction of the course of who you want to be.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, what would be a piece of advice you would give someone who's kind of, they want to make these changes, but they haven't quite made those shifts to recognize that they actually do have the power to do so in their lives?
I think a really big thing for people who are really wanting to change is to be able to have empty space in your calendar to self-reflect. Because a lot of the times a lot of people want to be busy, being busy, watching, binging Netflix. Like, hey, don't get me wrong, I do that sometimes too, but not like, to numb my feelings, or, just always getting distracted. So if people are able to kind of have some empty space and meditate and have some self-reflection, and being able to be aware of where the thought process is, because I truly believe that you cannot change what you're not aware of. So when they say, for instance, and a simple exercise is, so if you're always having this negative feeling coming up, every time you're like, I feel it in my gut, why am I feeling this negative thing? Like, I'm not enough, I'm stupid, I'm all this other things. So in that moment, what I've done in the past is, like, when I get that like kind of feeling about any situation, I kind of pause. And I always remember this amazing quote that I love so much, is by Albert Einstein. He says that the mind cannot solve the same problem with the mind that created it. So whenever I get that in my stomach, I do a breathing exercise. So I breathe in for 10 seconds, I hold for 10, and I release for 10. I do that 10 times. And then I go through a process of investigation. Like, why am I feeling this? Where has it started from? Is it because of a certain experience? Is it because of how that person talked to me? And what action do I need to take to resolve it? And so when I ask myself quality questions and know where I need to take it next, so I take that action, and then I can just release it. Because the thing is, whenever anybody has that negative emotion, they kind of sweep it under the carpet. It's like, you know what? I just got to think positive, because the industry tells me to think positive all the time. But thinking positive like all the time, and the way the industry tells you, is dangerous, because you are neglecting those aspects of yourself that you need to work on and have that inner transformation. So that is an amazing exercise that I kind of done myself for like many years now. I just need to take a breath, and everything kind of changes after that. But it's, like I said, it wasn't overnight. It was a continuous a continuous process I had to do.
And that was a very interesting thing that you said, that Albert Einstein quote. I've heard that once before, and that kind of leads me to think, we all have one brain, but we have multiple minds. We have the conscious mind, we have the ego mind, and you're totally right. I mean, when you're in the thick of it, the mind that brought you there cannot be the same mind that gets you out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and another thing that you said, you know, way back at the beginning of the interviews, at one point you felt dead inside.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think a lot of us can relate to that dead feeling. I know I can relate to that dead feeling inside, you know, where, you know, you literally don't feel anything. You don't feel joy, you don't feel pain. And then, you know, at some point, some of us get out of it, and then we do immediately go to that positive, you know, and we cling on to that positive for dear life because we know how bad the negative can be, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of working with the negative, like you're saying, you know, and just clinging on to the positive, that negative, it's still there. You know, it doesn't go away. It's just not poof and then it's gone. You know, it stays there, and it kind of waits. You know, and it waits for just one little, you know, opening to kind of go in, and, you know, and there you go. You got, you know, everything screwed up, self-sabotage, all that kind of stuff. But another thing that you're mentioning too is how, you know, how people are starting to, you know, to wake the fuck up. How, you know, the collective, you know, the people, and like you said before, and I know it's true for me, you know, when I first heard the term unconditional love, like, what the hell does that mean?
Exactly.
You know, like, well, I couldn't even like comprehend the word unconditional, you know, because when I was brought up with conditional love, you know, if you do this right, I'll love you, or I'll reward you, or something like that. If you don't do it right, then, you know, I'll scold you, I'll discipline you, or whatever. And it did take me a while too to, you know, understand and embrace that unconditional love part. But to go back to, you know, people waking up, I was wondering if you could kind of explain, you know, what wake the fuck up movement is. You know, what is that movement that you're referring to, that book that you're referring to, and why is it, you know, so important right now more than ever for people to actually wake the fuck up?
Yeah, you know, like when I initially wrote that book, it was really to kind of share my experiences and kind of to really illustrate that no matter how tumultuous your life is, that you can still pursue your goals. And when I wrote that book, I felt that wasn't really enough. So that's why I created the Wake the Fuck Up movement, where I was having, you know, in-person sessions where I'd kind of do meditation and talk about controversial topics. And all to kind of just wake people the fuck up to awaken to their own amazingness. You know what I mean? To be conscious of things that are in their life, so they can then pursue their life of the dreams. Because like I said earlier, you cannot change what you're not aware of. And I think a lot of times if I'm able to kind of provide a safe place where people can be seen, heard, understood, and not judged, then they'll be able to kind of divulge things that they've never told anyone else. And I think being able to kind of experience that and let people kind of unfold and be so vulnerable and cry and share those kind of things about being raped or being, you know what I mean, self-worth and just gaining all this weight, all these different dynamics that they were finally heard. And when people have an ability to be seen and heard, they kind of gain the confidence to be like, whoa, you know what I mean? Someone actually cares about me and my well-being and the beliefs in me. Now I feel I can go, pursue this or that. And I think the reason why it's so important for a lot of people to wake up is that we really need to kind of get the sense of morality back in this world. And I think a lot of times, even with business and stuff like that, people lack character, they lack the morality. And it's like, they focus on, yeah, I'm a spiritual being and I have positive mindset. That's great. But what values are guiding your life? So the next thing you know, it's like, I have another opportunity, I'm just going to like leave this person behind. You know what I mean? How are you going to treat other people when you're moving up or you're moving down the ladder? So really this Wake the Fuck movement is really to bring this awareness and bring people conscious so we can really elevate the whole vibration of this planet. Because I really believe in like the butterfly effect, and I really believe in the 100 monkey experiment. I think you guys may have heard that before. And I also believe in reaching a critical mass. And I think the more and more that we uncover ourselves and become the best version of ourselves, I think, just by the people being in our vicinity, we can actually raise them up without them even knowing. Because when I see, visions of like, pursuing my passion or helping humanity, I don't really see the physical beings. I see like this translucent, shape of their soul or their being, and they're coming all attracted. So I think when people can be the best version of themselves and deal with their trauma so they're not puking all over other people, then I think we can be kinder and nicer and be more compassionate and loving to others, and really be present. Because when we're all too in ourselves and focusing on our ego and all this other stuff, we can't really help other people, because it's like, am I helping you and doing this because I want something, or am I really helping you for the mere fact that I kind of love you, you know what I mean, and I want to see you do better. So I think we really need to do that, learn those distinctions, and that's why I think waking the fuck up is so important.
I love that. And so I'm wondering, you kind of alluded to, as we as individuals are waking up, how do you think that does change the collective?
I believe that changed the collective because when you're talking, Sam, earlier about all these different minds, the ego mind, the subconscious mind, the regular mind, I believe it's all one mind. And the Hermetic, philosophies, it's always this one mind. So I believe when each of us start to awaken and know that we're this divine beings, then we really affect our environment and the people around us. So I believe the more we become those divine beings, the more we can positively affect those around us, and I think that will help raise the consciousness and vibration of this world. Because I think people think that there needs to be this big grand gesture or this this big kaboom or supernova, but I believe it's the small act of kindness that means the most. You know what I mean? Like, it's those acts of kindness, like, a lot of people are like, oh, look, I bought this homeless guy meal and gave him money, and they videotape it. But I think real humanity is not even wanting to even show that you did that. You know what I mean? Just to be able to kind of give without receiving, even a smile, opening the door, those kind of small acts of kindness to make it known that someone exists. And I have a really amazing story. I remember I was in this training, and one of the teachers said that he was walking downtown in Winnipeg, and then he looked up and smiled at this individual. And that individual was so stricken and really emotional. And he said, I was going to commit suicide today, but since you acknowledged me like I existed, I think I matter. So I think we really need to review how small acts of kindness can really turn someone's life around.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that our world is lacking is seeing and hearing each other. And so when we really truly step in and look and into someone's eyes and hear what they're saying, and we don't have to know the right words, or we don't have to say the right things, or we just have a sense of presence and hearing what they're saying and just validating what they're saying. I hear you, I see you, it's I can empathize. And so I think when we can show up for people like that, it can really shift a lot of things. Because I've heard stories like that too, where someone was going home wanting to die, and all of a sudden they had this experience with this person, and they felt like it wasn't that they got their plan was they took a misstep, or I'm trying to say they decided that I matter, and so they felt seen. So I think if we can show up and do that, we can really start to shift humanity, and it doesn't have to take a lot.
Yeah, it's just a small acts of kindness. It accumulates, and it's just like I was talking about earlier, the butterfly fact of the flapping of the wing of the butterfly on one side of the world can cause a hurricane on another side of the world. So I think it's always reminiscent, and I always think about that, those small acts of kindness that mean the most.
And it's a ripple effect, because once you show that act of kindness, that person's going to want to also show an act of kindness. And so it just continues to manifest into just changing how we view each other in a place of love rather than fear.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I love like it's kind of going back to what you were saying earlier about changing our the insides, not going through that positive thoughts, because I think we've been conditioned to think positively, but really taking that time to feel the energy, feel the emotion, the layers of the trauma, the layers of whatever is coming up. And so that to me is also a big part of our healing, right? Is just going within. And so how would someone, in your opinion, like how would someone start that process? Like what would be like some tools or things that they could do to really shift from looking external to going within and beginning that healing journey and working through some of those deeper traumas?
I think it goes back to, what has helped me a lot is being able to have a morning routine where like you wake up and you meditate, and you also practice, an attitude of gratitude, like writing in a journal. But also, like I said, like it's awareness. I always go back to awareness because you can't change what you're not aware of. So for instance, say if what somebody is thinking is always in a negative mind frame about anything and anyone. So I would suggest that someone kind of for 7 days straight, and radically honest, write down everything in your mind, what I mean, what you're thinking about. Like you thought about this person, that driver, you gave him a finger, you said fuck off, everything for 7 days. And then when you're able to kind of look at that and be like, whoa, this is the majority of what my mind is focused on every day. No wonder why I feel like shit. No wonder why no one wants to hang around with me. Now, what are the steps that I can do to kind of shift that? So if I'm focusing, 99% of myself in the negative things, what can I do to start, shifting that? Are there's aspects inside of me that I need to work on? Maybe I have low self-worth. Okay, I have low self-worth because my parents and my mother told me I wasn't good enough. So let me kind of work through that trauma and let me kind of be able to build a habitual belief that I'm good enough. Okay, so now that I want to feel that I'm good enough, let me kind of reinforce that with everything in my, environment. So I'll put affirmations up in my wall, like I love myself, I'm beautiful, I'm enough. But then also, start to read certain books that will help even solidify that even more. And if you even want to operate on a higher level, then you get like a mentor or a coach to help you through that journey. Because a lot of times, with entrepreneurship and even this personal development journey, people think they need to go at it alone. But if you can get a helping hand to get you from that point A to B faster, then you can do that. But I think the most important thing with anything and everything is to be aware of how you're truly functioning, and then have the willingness to want to change. Because it's one thing to kind of know that something's wrong, but you also have to have the desire and dedication and perseverance to want to make that change permanent. And that can happen through habitual patterns that you implement in your daily routine.
Absolutely. I think it's, you brought up some good points of just that awareness, right? It takes that awareness to really dive deep and that desire, the decision. So everything starts with a decision to say, hey, I'm deciding, I cut off all options, as Tony Robbins would say. You decide, and you move forward. And when you decide something, there's also this energy that lifts up, right? Because then there's not this ambiguous energy anymore. It's not this wishy-washy. It's like, I'm doing this. And that sounds very freeing and empowering.
Yeah. And another thing that I do want to mention, and I think a lot of times why people are afraid to kind of look within is they're scared to see what they're going to find. They're scared to uncover the thought process that they're so embarrassed that they're even thinking of, like, why is that person winning? I should be winning. That person sucks. Or why is he with her? Like, I'm prettier. Or why is he with she? You know what I mean? All these different things. People are so scared to look within. But I think the biggest thing that people need to realize, you are not your thoughts. You know what I mean? You are not your thoughts. You're not your body. You're not any of those things. You're not your feelings and your emotions. A lot of it is from the collective unconscious. So you're able to kind of shift that when you can deal with the source and start kind of implementing the habits to kind of reinforce the person that you want to be.
Definitely. And one thing that kind of sparked my mind too is I think a lot of us, when we have those negative thoughts, we think we're the only ones that have them. Like I'm the worst person in the world because, like you said, like I think, that person's a douchebag or something like that, and I'm trying to go down the spiritual path, and here I am thinking that, this guy's an ass, and that must mean that I'm not as far on the spiritual path as I thought I'd be. And then your mind just starts to go, well, maybe this isn't for me, and da 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 da. And that's something that I have had. I've had to kind of learn over and over and over again in my life that, I'm not the only one thinking these thoughts. I'm not the only one with negative thoughts. I'm not the only one with, criticizing thoughts, whether it be against me or with somebody else. That we're all in the same boat. It's a collective. It's called a collective for a reason, because we all share the same things. We all share the same like consciousness. We all have these negative thoughts about ourselves. We all have these negative thoughts about other people. But to kind of turn down the volume on the ego mind telling you you're the only one to have these thoughts, or you're a piece of shit, it's tough. It's not easy, and it does take that practice. Like you were saying, it does take, those affirmations. It does take okay, let's take a step back. Let's switch my mind. And, okay, am I really a piece of crap for thinking this? No, you're not. You're human. You have a human condition just like the rest of us. And to me, anyway, I think that's a huge step, is acknowledging that these thoughts, like you said, these thoughts are not me. And, I'm not evil for having these thoughts. But a question I had for you, and the routine you were talking about, all that, it's really, really awesome stuff. But if somebody was listening, just stumbled on this podcast episode and they had no idea of unconditional love, they think, what the hell is that? Kind of like we thought. And the positive affirmations, journaling, like I don't even have time, I don't want to do any of that crap, whatever. Or they're just too, like you said, too afraid. What would be a good number one step for somebody that's just completely fresh and new on this, but has a desire of, what, I've been feeling like crap my entire life, I don't want to feel like crap anymore? Where do you think somebody like that's just completely new, where would be a good place for them to start?
Well, I would first say that anyone going and attempting this journey, they should have, I always kind of say at the end of all my talks to have love, kindness, and compassion towards others. But that love, kindness, and compassion should be kind of reverted to the self as well. And knowing that this journey is not going to be easy, because the journey of 1,000 steps, of 1,000 miles begins by taking the first step. So anyone kind of listening and wanting to start first off, I say just kind of, even having the desire to want to do it is a big feat. And knowing that, that something's wrong, you've already won 50% of the game, right? And then so just taking small little actions and letting them accumulate, and compound. So say, for instance, I'm not really big into journaling or gratitude and all this other stuff. Well, how about I just start 5 minutes of silence or 5 minutes of meditation every day? So let me start off with that, 5 minutes of meditation 3 times a week. And you know what? I did this for a week. I think I can increase it. So do 10 minutes and then go to 15 minutes and okay, I think I got this. So now I think I'm ready to kind of do the next step. I think I'm ready to kind of start journaling, because I know that in my mind, if whatever I think about, I bring about. So how about I focus on things that I'm grateful for? Okay, I'm going to write down 3 to 5 things I'm grateful for, so that my mind can shift and I can find things that I'm more grateful for. I'm okay, I think I even want to improve it even more. I think there's certain things in my mindset are not aligned with what I want. So let me kind of check out this book, by Carol Dweck with about mindset, or let me kind of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And let me start to kind of bring in all of the resources to start to, support the direction that I want to go. And I think a lot of times people get overwhelmed because there's so many things and people tells you to do so much things, but just start with one And I think that with anything, the most important thing is consistency. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to go to yoga 1 hour this 1 week. No, I think it would be better to do like 5-10 minutes of yoga daily. So you can start to build that emotional muscle, to build that habit. So when you have that habit, it's really harder to kind of tear that down versus of like, okay, if I did it 1 week or 1 hour this 1 week, then I'm like, okay, fuck it. I don't ever have to do it again. I just did it, and I think that's the biggest thing that people really need to realize is to be consistent. Yeah.
I agree. I think consistency is key. I mean, we can't expect to, get in shape by, working out 1 day a week or 1 day a month. And, it's better to, do that on a daily basis, whether or not it's for like, that 5 or 10 minutes, maybe going for a walk, starting with a walk or, meditation, and so I think that, definitely consistency is key. And so, and also too, I think, because you brought up a few different books and things. And so, I think it's important too, that people they pick up what resonates with them. So if something doesn't resonate, then that might not be for them. But if there's a book or something that they're feeling drawn to, and I know, like for me, like when I was first starting out on my journey, this was probably 20 years ago, and I just felt a little lost, and I just set the intention. I was like, what, show me what I'm supposed to be doing. Show me something, a book or something that I can be focusing on. And all of a sudden, like I was pulled into Deepak Chopra. That was the first like step into my spiritual journey. Just learning, I think I read Perfect Health, maybe. I think that was maybe one of my first books, or Spiritual Tools for something. It's been a while, but I remember just like, diving deep into that, and that just resonated. And then, but that like led me to the next thing and to the next thing. And I didn't have to see where I was going to be in 20 years. It was just about like in that moment, in that time frame, I was like, I just kept, finding what resonated and what I was being led to, and just trusting that process. So it doesn't have to be overwhelming. We don't have to think, oh, I have to be over here, because when we think about the big scope of things, it can be overwhelming. That 1,000 miles can be, overwhelming, but it's just about that first step, taking that first step in the journey.
Yeah. But I also want to mention is there's something that you're resisting. That's something you should also, there's a certain book, you're like, oh my God, this book is a piece of shit. Sometimes when the thing that you're resisting is what you need to learn the most. So, cause it's like, sometimes your being knows as like, that aspects of the lower and higher self. So the higher self wants to grow and evolve and be this amazing being, spiritual being, but the lower self wants you to stay and remain the same. So it's almost like, I don't want to look at that book, but it's like, you have to. And then it's almost like, oh my God, there's just so much unflowering and unfolding in this. And I knew that I was ready at that time to kind of really receive this message. So I think when anybody gets that inkling on it, you should check it out.
That's a really good point too, because sometimes we don't always know what we need, but sometimes we get what we want or get what we need, not necessarily what we want in our path. And so to follow that space of like, okay, well, this is coming into my awareness, I maybe should check it out and be open to it. Absolutely. And so speaking of like kind of going into that space, like you talk a bit about like in your bio, how to help people reach their fullest potential and really become, into their true authentic selves. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that. Like what does that look like for someone to be in their full potential?
Yeah. So I'll just kind of like give you a definition of how I kind of define myself. So I kind of define myself as like a multifaceted expression exhibitionist who expresses all aspects of her being. So whether that be, mentally, physically, sexually, emotionally, like spiritually, like, a leader, a mentor, a coach, being the light, being the darkness, shy and like timid and scared and fearful, all those different aspects, because I think a lot of the times people think they need to be pigeonholed in one box. I'm just like a mom, I'm an accountant, I'm a doctor, and that's it. But I think we need to first know that we're multifaceted beings. And another thing that I kind of kind of come to the realization is that I cannot give people what I do not have. So if I'm acting in this authentic and realist self, how can I teach other people to do the same? So, and I think when I'm in the capacity to really be present for another being, and I'm operating as my true authentic self, then that gives them the permission to kind of unfold and discover who they are, and then help me kind of when they're open and trusting, then I can help draw that out of them. So when I have when they don't have any belief in themselves, they borrow my belief in them and they can feel it. And so that allows them to kind of unfold to their fullest and greatest potential, even at the time that they don't believe it. So even through the process of coaching somebody through, a year or a couple of years, they don't really get it at that moment, but through that consistent and persistent kind of love and affection and seeing the best in them, then they kind of gravitate towards that and be able to kind of look in the mirror like, you know what, actually, I'm pretty amazing. It's just these self-limiting beliefs that held me back, and not being able to kind of really look at my past traumas, which were really kind of helping me captive and prisoner in the past.
I love that. Yeah, especially, I mean, because we really, we can't give what we don't have. And so we have to be able to do some of that deeper work. And I love what you said just about, sometimes if you're working with someone and they don't have the belief in themselves, but sometimes it just does take that energy of someone else believing in them to give them that motivation, to give them that energy. It's really that energy, that exchange of like, oh yeah, like maybe I do have this within me. Maybe, they believe in me. So maybe I can start to, maybe that seed, that energetic seed has been planted so that they can move into their own authentic self.
But then I also, in the course of that, I kind of realized, what my mentor taught me, that the difference between being responsible to and responsible for. So I just realized, because sometimes you kind of take it personal if they're not succeeding or they're not doing what you're telling them to do, and they keep on falling back and downward spiraling. And so when I realized that responsible to and responsible for is that I can, be there to give them the best support and advice and guidance and love, but it's not my responsibility what they tend to do with that. I can't force anything on anyone. So they're going to have to want it for themselves. So when I'm able to kind of have that distinction and awareness, then I'm not so like, why didn't they do that? Why didn't they take my advice? Because they have free will. They can choose whatever they need to do. And it's almost like until they get to that point where like, okay, whatever she keeps on telling me keeps on happening. Okay, now I'm kind of finally ready to do the work and change, so it's pretty hilarious how that happens.
Absolutely. I think, you make a really good point. Actually, someone was asking me that yesterday, actually, because I'm a psychotherapist by trade. And so they're like, how do you do it? How do you sit and listen to people's problems all day long? And I'm like, well, it's not mine to take on. It's like, we have to recognize that everyone has a path, if I take on someone else's path or their problems, I'm taking away their empowerment. I'm not trusting that they have it within them. They have to get to that for themselves. And so I'm here as a co-facilitator. I'm here to just help, maybe walk the path, listen, hear, I have some tools, things that I work with people on, but ultimately every person's path is their own, and that's their spiritual journey, not mine. So it's never a personal thing. So
yeah, it's challenging at times, but again, that's something you have to experience and go through to know what that is. Yeah.
But we have to trust each other that we're all doing the right thing for our own self, rather than taking anything personal, because nothing's personal in life.
Yeah, and I think it's just the intention is on kind of the purity and love and wanting someone to be the best version of themselves. Then I think, that's a great space to be in, but not wanting to do it for something else, but really just kind of being present, and the intentions are pure.
And seeing as relationships are really a mirror to our own self. And so asking, what is this experience, or what is this person, what are they showing up for in my life for? What are, if they're, triggering something within you, what is the message? What is the deeper thing that needs to be looked at and healed? Because it's never about that outside person. It's about our own inner journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
You ever notice like clients coming into your office and kind of maybe reflecting back to you things that you're still working through, or like how does that manifest for you?
Like actually when I've had some readings, it's been pretty interesting, is that when people have come to me for readings, it's kind of people who have been in the point in my life where I was in the past. So it was so interesting because since I worked through it and kind of was able to evolve, in my being, that I was able to provide them with the kind of steps to kind of move forward. But also too, sometimes, there's people that you meet that fully drain you. And, when you're kind of like an empath as well, sometimes people can see people as kind of triggers, like, oh, they're triggering something. But then also it's like that knowing of like who you should surround yourself with. If the vibe is not right, you shouldn't be like hanging around with those people. It's not that they're triggering something in you. You just know that those people are not a good match for you, right? So I think it's really important to know those distinctions. And yeah, so when been working with people, that's what I've usually seen, is people who were back where I was.
That is a good point too, of like just learning also to trust your own intuition around, okay, maybe it's not a trigger. Maybe it's just, I'm not on the same level or same vibration as this person anymore. And that's okay. But we can also, as we're doing our own healing work, those people might come into our awareness that have gone through what we've already gone through. And that's how we can, fully help support them, because we can empathize even more so and on a deeper level.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if you have a process that you do that you can share with our listeners.
And in regards to what aspect?
Well, you mentioned something about maybe a process about trauma work, or something that, someone is having a trigger or a piece of trauma or something, occurring in their life that maybe to shift some of that energy. Is there a process that you go to?
Yeah, it's kind of similar to the process that I explain when someone is getting that, that contraction or that just same negative experience that's always occurring. Like, why is that happening? So I talked about like the breathing in. So breathing in 10 times, holding it for 10 and releasing it. But then there's also an aspect of kind of just sitting in silence and just kind of doing like a body scan technique. So you're sitting down there in lotus position, and you're just kind of like, connecting with source. Is like, I'm getting this internal contraction, source, please show me and uncover to me where, what is the core root of that, where had that happened. And please show me the situation, how old I was, what was the trauma. And I mean, if you're really connected, then source will unfold and show you pictures of that particular trauma. And then you can ask questions like, how can I be able to start to resolve this? And then you're going to be because the thing is, it's never about the answers. It's about asking quality questions. So if you're kind of sitting there, it's like, oh, why I'm so fucked up? Why do we keep on getting to the same shit? Then you're going to get the same those same shitty answers. But if you sit down, it's like, okay, I sincerely, with my whole being, I want to finally transcend this thing that keeps on occurring in my life. What is it that I need to see about myself that I need to work on, And then if you're really sincere in that desire, then things are going to fold. It's like, well, you know what I mean? You kind of really lack self-worth. And it's because you lack self-worth. That's why you people please. You want that attention from everyone. But the problem with that is that everybody else likes you, but you don't like yourself. So how can you start honoring yourself and knowing that who you are matters? So again, it starts with, that process of like, that simple steps, doing those 5 minutes, like 3 times a week, and increasing that. Because initially, several, 11, 12 years ago, that's where I started. I didn't know what the hell meditation was. I didn't even know what to do. And I started 5 minutes 3 times a week, where I increased it gradually, and then, doing half an hour, 2 hours every now and then, and just listening to what my body needs. But essentially, at the end of the day, when anybody's working through things, they have to give themselves that time and that empty space to really sit down and kind of uncover. Because I think the thing is, if you can't spend 5 minutes with yourself alone, that's really a big indicator that you really don't like yourself. You know what I mean? Or something's wrong, because who doesn't want to have that quality time to kind of really get to know themselves, which is the most important being. Because once you know thyself, then you know what direction you want to go in life, what your purpose, what your passion is, who you want to be aligned with. If you don't know that aspect of yourself, then you're going to be, puppeteered by this external hand about like what you think, do, and act, and how you should show up on this world. So I think it's really important that people spend the time to get to know themselves.
Mm-hmm. I think that is very important, because and to quiet that mind chatter, because I think sometimes, when people start to spend time with themselves, they're like you said earlier, afraid to kind of uncover what's underneath that, and their mind is racing. I work with a lot of people that too, they start to go to sleep at night, and because they've ignored all of that, all those thoughts and feelings that come up during the day, the moment they get quiet at night is when their mind starts to race, and they notice all those feelings, because now they're finally in a quiet place. So I think it's important, to have that quiet time, intentional quiet time, to work through some of those thoughts, the racing mind, and do some of that self-reflection, and start to get comfortable with who you are, and what it is that you're maybe need to look at and heal. And it doesn't all have to be done at once, right? It's those baby steps, that awareness, that taking that time to meditate.
Yeah, and just like that's, I can't even explain how important self-reflection is, because you can meditate, do something in the morning, but even in the evening before you go to bed, it's like, just kind of evaluate your day. Just be like, this is the person that I want to be, and was I in alignment, or what do I need to improve, or or maybe what are certain actions that I need to refrain from. And it, like I said, it always goes back to this awareness. You cannot change what you're not aware of, and I think that's a key in every different aspects in your life.
Mm-hmm. That is very important. Awareness is key to make those changes. Absolutely. Carol, tell our listeners how they can find you and what you're currently working on.
Okay, so they can find me in all social media channels at Carol Banayos. And one thing that I'm really focused on working right now, they can check out carolbanayos.club, is self-mastery. Creating a roadmap to self-mastery. Because what I found with like working with entrepreneurs, coaching and mentoring them, and even doing these one-on-one readings, is that, again, like what I said, everyone wants a pill for every ill. And I think when people are able to self-master themselves by studying themselves, knowing what ticks them, what inspires them, what they like and dislike, then they'll be a better, empowered being to kind of live the life that they want. And I think, when I look at the journey that I went through with all this tumultuous, painful and traumatic events, I look at this whole past 11, 12 years as an aspect of how I self-mastered myself. And so I want to be able to kind of share those same tools, strategies, and experiences that I went through, so that can help them kind of be the empowered person in their life to kind of achieve whatever they want. Because it starts with the self first. And I think, a lot of people focus on, like I said, those external aspects, but it's this internal world that we need to master, which is ourself.
That's beautiful. Yes, absolutely. And we will add all your links to our show notes so people can easily access and find you. So thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing your experience with us and having this beautiful conscious conversation. And so thank you for tuning in and listening to our show. Stay tuned for more episodes being released on Mondays at 5:55 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And if you've enjoyed listening to our show, we would love a 5-star written review on iTunes. And of course, please share the love by sharing it with your friends. And if you want to support the work that we're doing, please consider making a donation to our show by visiting our Patreon website at patreon.com/Be the Love Podcast. And until next time, love yourself, love each other, and love the world. We love you.
Love you guys. Take care. We'll talk to you later.
We at Be the Love Podcast are honored to be supporting the Kamoti Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization in Uganda that is working to build a school that will promote and support healthcare, education, skills development, feeding the hungry, human rights, and environmental defenders. Their goal is to work with young mothers and single mothers, street children, and vulnerable families who lack nurture as they guide them to become productive individuals, which will lead to a productive generation. Please see our show notes on how to become a donor, mentor, volunteer, or sponsor.
Thank you, Heather Lynn, for providing us with your beautiful song to accompany our show, Be the Love. If you would like to learn more about Heather Lynn and her music, please visit her website at heatherlynnmusic.com. And thank you, Chrissy Grace at Leading Edge Productions for the beautiful design and graphics.
And thank you for tuning in. And until next time, we are Souls on the Journey. And thank you for hopping on the Ascension bus with us. And remember, there is always a seat for you.